It was a quiet Sunday afternoon in a small cafe just outside downtown Seattle. Mark sat alone near the window, stirring his tea slowly. The place smelled like fresh coffee and warm pastries. Soft music played in the background. It was the kind of peaceful moment he hadn't felt in a long time. 2 years earlier, his wife had passed away. Since then, weekends felt longer, quieter. He lifted the cup to his lips, when suddenly, 2 small shadows appeared beside his table. He looked up. Twin girls, maybe 7 years old, identical braids, matching pink jackets, wide, nervous eyes. Before he could say a word, one of them leaned closer and whispered quickly, "Please, pretend you're our dad." Mark blinked. "What?" The other twin pointed subtly toward the counter. A tall man stood there, watching them with an impatient expression. "He thinks we're alone," the first girl whispered. "We told him our dad is here." Mark's heart skipped. He glanced at the man. Something about his stare didn't feel right. Without thinking too long, Mark straightened in his chair. In a calm, steady voice he said, "Girls, where have you been? I've been looking everywhere for you." The twins instantly stepped closer to him, relief flooding their faces. "Sorry, Dad," they said together, playing along perfectly. The man at the counter hesitated. He studied Mark carefully now. Mark held his gaze, firm, protective, unafraid. After a tense few seconds, the man looked away, muttered something under his breath, and walked out of the cafe. The door closed. Silence. The twins let out the breath they'd been holding. "Thank you," one whispered. Mark knelt slightly so he was at eye level with them. "Where are your real parents?" "Our mom is parking the car," one replied. "She told us to sit here and wait. That man came and kept asking if we were alone." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. Just then, the cafe door opened again, and a woman rushed inside, scanning the room frantically. When she saw the girls, she hurried over. "Oh my goodness, I told you to stay together," she said, hugging them tightly. Then she looked at Mark, confused. "I'm so sorry." Mark stood gently. "They handled it very smartly. They said their dad was here. I just helped the story." The mother's expression changed from confusion to understanding, then gratitude. "There was a man watching them, wasn't there?" she asked quietly. Mark nodded. Her face went pale. "I noticed him in the parking lot." She hugged her daughters again, tighter this time. One of the twins looked up at Mark. "You sounded like a real dad." He gave a small smile. "I used to be." The words slipped out before he could stop them. The mother's expression softened. "Would you, maybe join us for a few minutes?" she asked. "At least let me buy you another tea." Mark hesitated. Then the twins grabbed his hand. "Please, Dad," they said playfully. For the first time in a long while, Mark laughed. They sat together at a larger table. The girls told him about school, about how they switch seats sometimes to confuse their teacher. Their mother introduced herself as Elena. As the conversation flowed, something inside Mark began to shift. The cafe didn't feel so quiet anymore. After a while, Elena looked at him thoughtfully. "You didn't hesitate," she said. "Most people would have ignored them." Mark shrugged lightly. No child should ever feel unprotected. The twins smiled at him again, this time not out of fear, but comfort. When it was finally time to leave, one of them hugged him tightly. "Thanks for being our dad for 5 minutes." Mark swallowed the lump in his throat. "Anytime," he said softly. As they walked toward the door, Elena paused. "We come here most Sundays," she said gently. "In case you ever feel like having tea with temporary daughters again." Mark watched them step outside into the afternoon light. The seat across from him was empty once more. But somehow, it didn't feel lonely anymore. He looked down at his tea, now cold, and smiled slightly. Sometimes, life gives you unexpected moments. And sometimes, the smallest voices asking for help remind you that your heart is still capable of protecting, caring, and maybe even opening again.